Hi everyone, welcome back, and we're going to be making the Metal Earth Premium Series, which is the Icon X series of the Queen Anne's Revenge, which is famously known as Blackbeard's pirate ship. Interestingly enough, this pirate ship was actually only used by Blackbeard, I believe, like 2 years, I think, in his career as a pirate. So it's actually a very short-lived ship, but it's really famous considering how short he actually used it. I was actually very afraid of touching this model and also the Black Pearl or any of these Metal Earth boats or ships, actually is the proper term, just because when you look at the final model and you see like, all the ropes and everything, it looks daunting. But I figured I might as well give it a try because I'm feeling more comfortable with my Metal Earth skills. So I tried it, and interestingly enough, it's actually a very simple model. The harder part is actually to shape the hull properly and connect it so that there's no gap. But in terms of the whole rope and the mast, they're actually, if you can consider it like you have a two-dimensional plane, an X and a Y plane. So you're gonna have all your ropes just be one single layer that you're just gonna put in between, and the masts are actually going to be perpendicular to that rope, and that's pretty much all you're going to do. And then from there you're going to add a couple of the ropes onto the side by attaching it kind of just like on the side of it. So in reality, it's actually a very simple model to do, but it looks a lot more complicated than it really is. So as you can see here, the mast that I was talking about is going to be perpendicular to the run of the deck. And you're going to have 3 masts in total, which is going to be the foremast, the main mast, and then the mizzen mast. Or is it mizzen mast? I'm actually not sure of the pronunciation. But as you can see here, now these are all the ropes that are just going to slide in to the slot perpendicular to the mast and join together, and it's really that simple. That's pretty much all you're really going to be doing. And then from there you're going to be attaching the sails and then the shrouds, and the shrouds are easy too because you are just putting it on the side and just attaching it to the rope. And then for the sails are a little bit more difficult just because you'll have to bend the correct shape to fit it in between the ropes and then attach it to the mast. But even then, it's actually a lot simpler than the actual model looks. So I would say the most difficult or the most challenging part will be the actual hull of the ship. Because as you can see here, I'm trying to bend the hull into a nice kind of concentric shape, or conical shape, I guess. But at the ends, as you can see here, that they're going to be kind of like little strips that you're going to be bending, curving in pretty much 2 different directions, and then you're going to be joining the tabs together to form the holes. And so this is the part where it's a little bit hard to kind of get the right shape, just because this will kind of set the shape for the whole ship. But even then, it's not that difficult, and it kind of allows you some freedom to kind of shape it later on as you go. So I wouldn't worry about getting the perfect shape from the beginning, especially is because you want to make the hole a little bit wider than it probably needs to be, just because after you're done building the hole and then you're building the deck, you're going to put the deck in between the hole itself, and then kind of put the tabs through on the sides, and then kind of bend the tabs. So you kind of want a wider hole so that it can kind of easily slide into the hole. Just an FYI, I actually don't know any of these terminologies or vocabs. I actually had to look up a ship anatomy just to know and understand what the different parts of the ships are called. So the only one I actually knew was the hull, the sails, the mast, and the deck. But I didn't actually know the difference between a mizzen mast or a main mast or foremast, for example, or the fact that the ropes that are kind of on the sides are called shrouds. So I actually like building these models because I get to kind of look up the kind of anatomy of the parts and kind of learn about it. The same thing with the Metal Earth vehicles. As I'm building and I'm trying to explain which part I'm building, I'm actually looking up diagrams of the parts of the car so that I can kind of explain which area this build is. I know I said that the hull was the most difficult part, but that's in terms of the shape. But the part that I actually had kind of trouble with was all these little lanterns that you're going to be putting onto the side of the ship. And the only reason why it's actually pretty easy because they're just kind of right angles and stuff like that. But my problem is that they're so small, and with my kind of short stubby fingers, it was really hard for me to kind of grasp the pieces properly and bend it. This is kind of where the tweezers really come in handy. But you know, for me, it was kind of like my fingers were hurting just because I'm having to trying to pinch and trying to like grab onto these really small parts that my fingers having a hard time trying to grasp it properly. Personally, it was difficult for me, but I don't think it'll be much of a problem for you guys if you're building this model. So this is the part where I was most worried about, and this is the part where the deck goes into the hull. And as you can see, I kind of shaped the hull a little too tightly that I actually had to use an X-Acto knife because the tabs are sticking out past the deck, but that has to squeeze in between the exact size of the hull. So it's actually easier if you have the hull a little bit wider than necessary, so you can actually slip the deck in with the tabs and have the tabs go through the hole of the side of the hulls. So that's the part where I was anticipating that I might mess up and I'll actually break the model, just because if you're trying to squeeze something into that kind of tight of a space, a lot of times you're going to start bending metal that you don't want to bend. But luckily I didn't really have any issues. I did kind of scrape the side of the inside of the hole a little bit as the tab was kind of being pushed through and to slide into the hole. But luckily it's not an area that's very visible, so you're not going to really see those scratches. So I wasn't really too concerned about leaving a couple of scratch marks here and there. So this area was actually hard for me to reach with my pliers, and this is before I bought this very thin long plier that I can use to kind of squeeze in between those little spaces. So later on, like builds like these were easy for me to do, but at the time that I was building this, I didn't really have the proper tool for reaching in very deep areas to kind of be able to twist the tab. But that's really just more of an issue with the tool that I had at hand. But it's actually not a difficult thing to do, because all you have to do is just bend the tab. So the sail is kind of tricky because you actually have to have the right arch on the sail, because it kind of fits through a very specific hole between the ropes. And so the sail, if you can't bend it too much, or it will actually be too wide for it to kind of fit through. So you want to make sure you kind of have the right shape before you push it through. And it's actually not that hard, you know, once you bend it with the by using a rod, or in this case I used the back of my X-Acto knife. Once you got that shape, you can kind of unbend it a little bit if you need to kind of make it a little bit narrower. And it is a little tricky just because you have to have the heights for the tabs in the right locations to be put through the holes that are on the mast. But it's actually not a difficult thing to do as much as it's just kind of tricky. So here it is with all the shrouds and all the sails onto the ship itself. And never mind, I actually lied. I didn't realize, or actually I forgot, that there were actually multiple sails. So I got kind of excited prematurely, and I actually had to finish up the rest of the sails before I can say the whole upper deck has been completed. And okay, now I can say that the sails are done with the shrouds, and now the upper part of the ship is done. I can honestly say this is the one part that I really did not enjoy, is building these lanterns. Again, originally I believe I made 6 of the lanterns, and I had to build another 2 or 3, and you know, my fingers were really starting to hurt a little bit as I was building this part. All that work just for 3 lanterns and 1 lantern hanging. It was actually quite a bit of work, and it really was tedious for me to do this. I actually really like how they designed the window area for the back quarter for the captain's quarters, just because it's a single sheet pretty much, that you're going to be bending it so that the top comes down and it becomes kind of the curtains around the windows. And you know, it looks very intricate and detailed, and it's comes from pretty much like one sheet, minus maybe 1 or 2 pieces that you're adding on. But at the end of the day, that curtain and then the window is all part of one piece, and which I thought was just really great design, because you know, making it more complex doesn't always mean it's a better design, and this is a clear indicator or clear example of that. And as we are wrapping up the Queen Anne's Revenge, I have to say overall this model looks more daunting than it really is, and I would say it's about a medium difficulty. So if you're kind of used to some of the Metal Earth builds, this would be a great one for you to try, attempting a little bit more challenging, but really not that difficult at all. And I hope you really enjoyed watching this video build. I really enjoyed building this one, and if you like watching these Metal Earth builds, I recommend watching some of the other Metal Earth builds that I've done on my channel, or you know, hit subscribe and you know, be on the lookout for more Metal Earth builds, which I've done a lot of, and I'm just trying to compile the videos together for. So please subscribe and like my videos, and thank you for watching.